Missiles are faster, drones are cheaper, and the oceans that once protected America are starting to mean nothing. The Middle East isn't just a region, it's a trigger. The Caribbean has turned proximity into pressure, the Arctic is a missile corridor, and the Pacific, one miscalculation could spiral into something global. This is the real problem. America isn't facing one threat, it's reacting everywhere at once. Before any of that matters, the problem shows up clearly on a map. One of the most dangerous places on Earth is also one of the smallest. The Strait of Hormuz. Every single day, around 20% of the world's oil supply squeezes through this gap. For the US Navy, this is less a route and more of a trap. Iran has built advanced missiles and cheap drones that can be launched from the coast, not to win a war, but to make presence itself dangerous. The Persian Gulf has turned into one of the world's most dangerous hotspots. Every time a threat pops up, the US has to move a carrier strike group. Moving one into the Gulf means pulling it away from somewhere else. These multi-billion-dollar ships are essentially stuck in place, watching a small strip of water. One choke point can pin down an entire fleet. It ripples across the globe. In early 2026, Venezuela became a threat. Distance used to buy time, but now it removes it. The US response was fast and heavy. The USS Gerald R. Ford was sent to the area alongside other warships and F-35 stealth jets. But that deployment reveals the real issue. Every gap requires a massive reaction, and there are too many gaps. The Arctic used to be a wall of ice that no one could cross. Those days are over. As the ice disappears, new paths are opening up for trading ships and military vessels. Other countries are already moving into this space and building bases. The US military branch in charge of the North is racing to cover thousands of miles of new coastline, relying on icebreakers and sensors that were never built for this much work. And the stakes are high. Since the Cold War, the Arctic is the shortest path for a missile aimed at the US mainland. And with ice disappearing faster than ever, old strategies aren't enough anymore. The only way out is to change the rules of the game entirely. For years, a shield over the US existed in war rooms and science fiction. But now, that dream has become a $175 billion reality. It won't just change how wars are fought, it could change who wins them before they even begin. America is currently open to a missile attack, not because it's weak, but because the rules of war have changed. The only thing stopping a mushroom cloud-shaped disaster is the fear of retaliation. But deterrence only works after the first move. America wants to change that. It wants to stop the first move entirely. An intercontinental ballistic missile behaved like a baseball being thrown across a field. It would arc high into the sky, then fall back down. That path was predictable. Radar systems could see it coming. Computers could calculate where it would land. Hitting a missile was still hard, but at least the math behind it made sense. Hypersonic missiles have broken those rules. They don't just move faster, they're unpredictable, low altitude, constant maneuvering, minimal warning. By the time they're detected, it's a matter of seconds. Old radar systems are struggling to keep up. Most sensors were built to look up, to track targets following predictable paths, but they aren't built to spot something moving a mile every second while skimming just above the surface. There's not enough time for a human to make a decision. It's not even enough for older computers to calculate an intercept. On May 20th, 2025, President Trump announced a new design for a defense shield called the Golden Dome. Others tried, but walked away when the numbers failed. But that was before the hardware caught up. Money has been set aside, and construction has already started. A first payment has already gone through, $24.4 billion, approved under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Another $13 billion is locked in for 2026. But when you factor in development, global deployment, maintenance, and the need to replace satellites in orbit, the real cost doesn't stay in the billions. It hits the trillions pretty fast. Because total safety doesn't start on the ground. It depends on who controls what's above it and what moves around it. And that kind of pressure doesn't just cost money, it wears things down. Machines break, systems fail, people burn out. So even before the first interception ever happens, the system is already being tested. Not by war, but by the cost of simply keeping it alive. By investing now, the goal is to stop the endless cycle of moving ships and spending billions later. Making the land untouchable changes the dynamic of global power. It shifts the focus from the ocean into space. This is meant to end the era of vulnerability and start a new age where the map isn't just a list of problems to solve. Through this technology, the aim is to create a shield that stays up, even when the rest of the world is in chaos. The Golden Dome is designed to rebuild that lost time. And it's not just one system, it's a network. Thousands of satellites linked together with no blind spots. Sensors track launches the moment they happen and stay locked onto a target no matter how fast it moves or how much it turns. Once the threat has been identified, interceptors can engage early, even during the boost phase. The goal isn't to wait and intercept at the last second, it's to erase the threat before it even becomes one. Handling all the data is too much for any human to handle. That's where artificial intelligence steps in. The software looks at information from land, sea, and space all at once, and instantly decides which defensive tool has the best chance to hit the target. It might choose a missile in Alaska, a ship in the Atlantic, or a weapon in space. The system makes this choice and fires in a fraction of a second. Speed is the only way to beat a weapon that moves faster than sound. American companies are already hard at work. Lockheed Martin is developing the software that allows these defense systems to communicate seamlessly. Every piece of the system is already in production. The satellites, the interceptors, the software that ties them together into one continuous kill chain. By 2028, the first pieces of the shield will be up and running, and that will change the game for how the US deals with threats right now. The initial focus on hotspots like the Arctic and the Pacific means the most dangerous corridors will have real protection. There's no room for error. The enemy's tech is already out there. Every investment today is making the satellites tougher, harder to jam, and ready to survive attacks, so when the shield goes live, it actually works. This project is a total reset of how the world works. By building a shield that stays up all the time, the United States no longer has to react to every move another country makes. Success would mean that a carrier does not have to be parked in every single waterway to keep the country safe. Space becomes the new front line. All this comes at a huge cost. The problem with any defense is that the finish line keeps moving. History shows that every time a shield gets stronger, enemies immediately look for ways to break it. They might launch so many missiles at once that the system gets overwhelmed. Experts warn that the dome could accelerate a new arms race, one where countries aren't just stockpiling traditional weapons. Instead, they race to develop advanced technology specifically designed to bypass a so-called impenetrable shield. It'll create a cycle of escalation that may make global conflicts more unpredictable and technologically intense than ever before. It's a constant back and forth. The people building the shield versus the people trying to find a hole in it. Because if most missiles can't reliably reach the US mainland, everything changes. The most important piece of land in this system isn't in Washington either. It's in the Arctic, Greenland. It's not to do with politics, it's to do with geometry too. The shortest path between countries runs over the pole. Greenland sits directly underneath that path. If you control Greenland, you see the threat first. At the heart of this strategy is Pituffik Space Base, home to a massive radar that tracks missiles and objects in orbit. It sends data instantly to defense teams, detecting even the smallest objects with pinpoint accuracy. Greenland is transforming from a place that just watches into a place that can fight back. The plan calls for more sensors and even the possibility of interceptor rockets on the ice. If a threat can be stopped while it's still over the Arctic, it never reaches populated areas. By neutralizing danger far away, the risk to the mainland drops dramatically. If the Arctic is left open, though, the whole shield fails. This is what $175 billion actually buys. Not just defense, control of timing, control of space, control of geometry. But does the shield really make America untouchable? Once it's fully active, every other nation will have to completely rethink how they use their power. For many years, foreign policy was limited by the fact that the home soil could be targeted. Every time a move was made in a place like the South China Sea, leaders had to worry about a fight that might eventually reach American cities. That risk shapes decisions. The Golden Dome turns that into a one-sided equation. Enemies used the threat of missile strikes to pull the United States away from its friends and allies. They counted on the government never risking a city like Los Angeles to protect a distant ally. The dome changes the game. Every red line moves. Every enemy recalculates. The entire logic of nuclear deterrence, mutually assured destruction, was built on one belief: no one could stop the missiles once they launched. The dome shatters that assumption. If America can absorb a first strike and still retaliate, the threat of a nuclear exchange stops being mutual. It's the most significant change to the logic of war since Hiroshima. The military can choose when and where to get involved because the homeland is locked down. Friends and allies could see their roles change. If America no longer needs a wall of ships around it, the reasons for keeping those ships in certain places shifts. Protecting others becomes a choice, not something that must be done to keep the nation safe. Beijing's protests say a lot more than they intend. They reveal just how much the Golden Dome is already shifting the balance. Their argument is simple. If one nation can strike without fear of retaliation, the old rules of war no longer apply. That fear alone is changing behavior. Russia is already adjusting its strategy, and other nations are realizing they're facing a game they haven't fully figured out yet. Of course, the dome's greatest enemy might not be a ballistic or hypersonic missile. It's the dollar. Keeping it running for decades demands enormous funding. Every upgrade, every sensor and maintenance cycle comes with a cost, and inflation, shifting budgets, or political crises could leave gaps in coverage or delay critical improvements. In the end, even the most advanced shield is only as strong as the money backing it. Funding isn't just a numbers game. It shapes how America can actually defend itself. For decades, the US had to chase threats across oceans. The Golden Dome alters that, and the world is starting to notice. It doesn't just defend the homeland, it reshapes the rules of global conflict. The first country with a sky no missile can breach may be the first to rewrite the world entirely. The era of reacting everywhere at once is over, and once the Golden Dome is complete, the world will learn a terrifying truth. Some players simply cannot bear to lose. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack.